The Speak Out design is helpful when dealing with differences between two groups, especially when those differences relate to how people feel treated in terms of challenging issues like ethnicity, race, religion, or gender. How people deal with such challenging issues means digging into the culture of the group and usually should not be addressed unless the group is ready to be open and honest with one another. Imagine that someone on your team is feeling devalued, which is especially likely when they're in a subordinate position. In our example, it is the women on our team who are feeling devalued by a history of insensitive behaviour towards them. Some of the strongly held team norms include: don't complain, never cry, stick with the task, and never waste time in the process of how things get done. In this situation, discounting around gender had been bubbling under the surface for years, but one incident brought the issue to a head. A senior male officer made a highly prejudicial statement in a public meeting. A female counterpart then vigorously confronted him. The remaining women in the room exploded into clapping and laughter, while the men appeared to be in a state of confused silence. Here's a really top tip. Before getting into the design, remember to keep it simple. Don't try and solve all the unfinished business in a single activity. Making any progress in such a touchy situation can usually be deemed a success, so let's get creative. Step 1. The setup. Invite the women of the team, in this example, or the person or group that needs to speak out, to a meeting and ask them to develop a 10-minute story about their life, in this case as a woman in today's world. This means what they love about it and what frustrates them, angers them, and leaves them feeling diminished. Encourage them to also talk about their experiences as children in their family, with respect to the role, in this case gender, played, and make sure they prepare one piece of advice for the men, or the other group on the team, that they believe will help diminish the issue in the future. Step 2. The sharing. Have each member of the Speak Out group share their stories at a deep level with the other women present. The reason for doing this is to ensure that each Speak Out group member is committed to being honest and to supporting one another as they share their ideas without holding back. For people who usually keep these feelings to themselves, it can be a huge catharsis as each one reveals their strongest feelings and they are all vulnerable together. It's important that there's no debate, no questioning of each individual's comments other than for clarification. Step 3. The big meeting invite. After people have shared personal histories and feelings around the issue, arrange a meeting with the whole team, in this case the men and the women, and set it up as an opportunity to share at a deep level the feelings and history triggered during the incident. The men will probably think that this will be a confrontational meeting with them being the bad guys, but that could not be further from the truth, so try to let them know this. For them, it will be primarily about listening deeply to their female associates and helping the women to feel heard. Step 4. The positioning. Set the room up with the women sitting together in a semicircle facing the men. Then give the following instructions to the men. These women, their colleagues, have each been asked to share their stories of what it is to be a woman in today's world. Each will have up to 10 minutes, and they promise to be honest and specific in the stories and examples they are going to share. As colleagues, they need to understand this history because it has an impact of which they have little understanding. It's not about blame, it's about gaining a new understanding of this powerful and unspoken reality. The men's job is to listen deeply and to be open to learning, because later they will be asked to share what they've heard and any feelings they have about it. This is not a debate, and it's not about right or wrong. Step 5. The so what. At the end of the sharing and after a brief break, have the male members of the team share what they just heard from their female counterparts. Then lead the group in a discussion relating to what this means for them as a team. The key to this design is to place the men in a non-combative situation, knowing that their responsibility is to listen deeply. For the women, there has to be a commitment to be honest, both at an intellectual and emotional level, and awareness that they will, as a group, have to be vulnerable. Knowing beforehand that they are aligned with the other women gives the female participants the courage to share their stories in very personal and dramatic ways. As the design unfolds, the men will begin to hear a reality that they have likely never heard before, and understand how this influences their work and their relationships on the team. Again, there is no win-lose aspect to this design, because the focus on both sides is on understanding. As a follow-up to this design, you might want to arrange another meeting for more in-depth problem solving. A design such as the 6-step problem solving would be a good one to generate more detailed strategies for change. Again, you are not expected to solve such an intractable problem, but deep listening is a good beginning. Most likely there are real solutions in the group that a discussion like this can ignite. It might also be very powerful at another time to have the men undertake their own speak out, because a large part of the problem of gender differences rests in how the men live with huge expectations about what it is to be a man in our society and how that influences their behaviour. Once this second speak out is done, problem solving in how to establish different rules of engagement between the men and the women on the team, or even in the organisation, can be explored with both candour and care. Here is a summary of the steps with the timing for each. Step 1, the setup. Step 2, the sharing. Step 3, the big meeting invite. Step 4, the positioning. And step 5, the so what. The total design takes 2.5 hours.